I'd like to welcome everyone. This is Firearms is part of your self-preservation. My name is Rodney Viverette. My nickname is The Spoiler. You can catch me on the Facebook group or Facebook page, which is under my name, and also on YouTube under Mal Green Media LLC, and it's going to be on the Anchor app as Firearms is part of your self-preservation. Before I go any further, when you come to the page on Facebook, you will come into what is my manifesto. And no, manifesto is not a declaration that you're going to blow up the government and all this other stuff as people put it. A manifesto is just a statement of what you're about. That's all it is. It may sound menacing because people have now made it an issue because a lot of people have used it for bad intentions. But that's all it is, and I'm going to read through it and put it up on the screen so you can see it, and therefore you'll know which way I'm headed in what direction. So firearms is part of your self-preservation, and firearms ownership is part of your self-preservation. It's a personal blog by myself and podcast, Rodney Viverette, aka The Spoiler, and this is nothing but a public declaration of policies and goals for the channel and the podcast. And self-preservation in itself is defined as the basic instinct in a human to protect oneself from harm or death. Now, this is something that applies to the laws of nature. It has nothing to do with the laws of man. This is the laws of nature. I wholeheartedly believe in the laws of nature. Why? Because if you look at any disaster that has happened, natural disaster, who wins? Nature wins. So no matter how forward-thinking and smart human beings think they are, nature is always prevalent and will take over when it wants to. You'll hear me use a term called concrete jungles. That is any major city in which we live is nothing more than a concrete jungle to me. So this is not a declaration of physical war, attack, or harm to any person, any entity, or any government. It's not a declaration of war or an attack. This is not a political organization. This is an individual with an opinion, and that's it. And I take my opinion wholeheartedly because I've lived a long time on this earth. I'm the sole owner and the sole content creator for this podcast. And this is not something to be debated in the media, because those that like to debate get nothing done but sitting there and debating. And just because they want to debate, or they think they want to debate, they think they've accomplished something. And that's what you'll see with most political organizations. That's what you'll see with most politicians. They like to sit there and debate a lot. And of course, nothing gets done. To the trolls out there that are anti-gun owners or anti-guns, this is not your place. I'm not here to debate you. I don't go on your little thing or whatever you do and debate you about this, that, and the other. This is not your place. What I'm saying is non-debatable. You either are in or you're out. Anything else in between, I ain't got time to debate with you. Life is too short to be sitting there debating with people with little minds. This is not an organization that is going to support something that's contrary to what the belief system is. So if you belong to a gun rights organization, and you'll hear me say this many times, if they're double-crossing you, you shouldn't belong to that organization. Any organization you belong to, you should have transparency with the leadership and how things are running in that organization. If you don't, then you are in a bad organization that is double-crossing you. And there are several organizations that have been, gun rights organizations that have been double-crossing their membership for years, and they continue to do so. The goals of the organization is to inform humans of their natural born right Not that I'm against the Second Amendment. Second Amendment is for man's laws. Second Amendment should be upheld because that is something that the forefathers have left for you, and the politicians debate on whether or not you should have that right. But your natural born rights against attack that wasn't warranted at all should be preserved, not by law, but by natural law. And that's why the channel is here. Like I said, support the Second Amendment all the way, but I support your human rights to defend yourself and your family at all costs, at all times. Being a victim is something that I will not be. So let's get into this thing. First off, gun owners, all gun owners, are under attack. And they're under attack politically by both parties. Now, people try to debate one party over the other as far as gun rights. Like one party is better than the other. But what I'm telling you is this. One party gets backdoored. The gun owners who believe in that party, they get backdoored. Their gun rights organizations pay these politicians a lot of money, knowing that these politicians can't do nothing for them. And then when a piece of legislation comes out and they couldn't do nothing for them, they'll go, oh, well, you know, I tried. You're getting backdoored. That's the politician and the gun rights organization in the bed together. So that's how you're getting backdoored politically. The other side of the fence is people are promised some kind of equal rights or inclusion in what's going on in the rest of the world. But they want you to have equal rights. They don't want you to have guns. And that, you're getting jammed on that one. So now they're dangling the carrot of inclusion and equal rights without having gun ownership. How come you can't have gun ownership in both? So that doesn't make sense. That message doesn't make sense to me. And this whole thing is going to be about accountability in the open. And you can vote for whoever you want. You can be on what party line you want. But my thing is, be informed of who you're voting for. Not just towing a party line. Towing a party line has got us to this point where gun owners are under attack and they're attacking each other individually. I have no reason to attack another gun owner. We all have the same problem. That's the whole problem that we're not looking at. We all, as gun owners, we have the same problem. They want to take away our rights. So we have the same problem. Why are we debating with each other? That doesn't make sense to me. So the next part of this thing is when you're dealing with the politicians and your right to own a firearm, you got to look out for the buzzwords and buzz statements. They do this all the time on both sides of the fence. Words like sensible gun laws. What, can somebody tell me what that means? It means absolutely nothing. That means that your rights are going to be here, and they're going to do all this in between to make sure you have as little as possible. That's what that means to me. Because there's no meeting here for you as a gun owner. Only the cops should have guns. That is one of the stupidest statements I've ever heard in my life. I'm a retired police officer. You tell me, after 25 years of cultivating a skill set, that now, after I retire, I'm supposed to give up my guns. Are you out of your mind? This piece of machinery has been with me for 25 years plus, because I've been shooting since I was 18. And now, I'm just, okay, you can't have it no more. It's stupid. It's retarded. This means that when a person comes out with this statement, only thing they want somebody else to do is protect them. They don't want to protect themselves. They don't want to protect their family. And that does not make sense to me. You are your first line of defense always. Always. Always remember that. You are your family and yourself first line of defense. 911 is after the fact. And I'm going to explain how that goes. If we could only save one child, if we could only save one person, if we save one person from dying, then all the laws we've enacted have been worth it. It is a bunch of garbage. People die every day in this thing from all sorts of things. You don't hear this type of guilt trip put on all these other things, from car accidents to everything. Nobody goes to the car manufacturer, oh, if we could just save one person from a car accident, we're going to give you all these rules and you're going to abide by garbage. But they want to do that for gun ownership. That is complete garbage. You have to remember, we live in a society where guilt is put out in front of you to make you pull at your heartstrings and make you give in. Self-preservation tells me that they are trying to attack me from an emotional standpoint. I'm not buying it, and neither should you. That's for those people who are anti-gun people. Just call 911. 911 is not instantaneous. I've taken the assignments. I've taken the 911 calls. I've taken the calls for service. I've dispatched the calls for service. And I'm going to go into how this system works. It is not instantaneous. Okay, let's get into how 911 works. First of all, you have an incident, and this is probably going to be for most major cities. Some of the smaller cities, it may run a little bit different, and I'll get into some of those nuances, but for most major cities, this is how it goes. You have an incident, whether it's about to happen or it's happening now, but there's some way that 911 has to be triggered, whether it's by you or by a bystander. So the way it works is, you call 911, that call goes to a call center. Okay? If it's a larger call center, the call taker and the dispatch person will probably be two separate entities, two separate people in two separate rooms. In smaller jurisdictions, they may be one and the same, but the process generally is the same. Goes to the call center, it's answered by a call taker, someone that's going to field that call. They're going to enter that information into the system. They're going to ask you all kinds of questions about suspects, what's going on. The more description you have, is better off for the squads on the ground. Then that call is sent to a dispatcher. The dispatcher gets it on their board, and now the priority is set for that call, whether it's a high priority call, a low priority call, or a middle priority call. And this is where you get your variables that come in. Because now, based on the priority of that call, the dispatcher has variables that they're working with, which is the number of personnel that's working that shift, and is working that particular district or sector, the number of cars that are available to take that assignment, and what other assignments that they're on. Are they on a higher priority call than this one? Or are they on a lower priority call? Are they going to be able to take them from somewhere else and take them and send them to whatever incident you got going on? And the thing about it is, who's free to take the assignment? I've worked nights to where there was nobody free. So you have to look at your lower priority cars and see what they're on, take them off that car and send them to a higher priority call. What starts to happen with that is the quality of your police service starts to degrade, because now not only does that squad have to go to a higher priority call and get stuck on that, the other call it came off of still has to be serviced in some way, whether he's going to have to get back to it 2 or 3 days from now, or whatever the case may be. So for the officer on the street, case management becomes a priority because now you're getting taken off calls to go to other calls. Now, smaller jurisdictions, they may not have that problem, but they still have to manage their cases as what's going on. Your call for service time will vary depending on how many personnel is available, what priority is your call. You can go anywhere from minutes to hours in some bigger jurisdictions, depending on what's going on that day. If it's a day where something major is happening in the city, there's going to be a ton of calls sitting up there. You know, what's that day? New Year's Eve is always, for most jurisdictions, a busy day, and the shift the next morning winds up coming in playing cleanup because it's just so overwhelmed with calls, shots fired everywhere, batteries, everything else. So just keep in mind, when you call a 911, you better be ready to defend yourself because it's you and whatever's going on right there. So if you're getting attacked, you better put up. You know, you better be ready to fight. And if you're not, you should be questioning yourself because at the end of the day, you are your first line of defense for you and your family always. There's no exception to that. You can't make me have any exception or explain anything to me. I don't care who you are. They make firearm ownership a race issue. Notice I said they make it. Firearms owners are such a large majority of people to where they can be their own ethnic group. There shouldn't be any infighting with another gun owner. Most of that comes on either political views or some personal view of race and color. But the actuality is, if you are a firearms owner, we should be all working in the same direction to make sure that all of our rights are intact and unimpeded on. But they make it a race issue. And some examples of this is this. Inner city crime. Now if you're black, they're going to say, as a gun owner, how can you be a gun owner and the inner city has all this crime? Well, last I checked, I wasn't responsible for inner city crime. That was not my responsibility. A lot of people I know don't even live in the inner city, and they're black. So how can they be responsible for inner city crime because they're a gun owner? Another stupid thing that anti-gun owners say, because they are trying to say the correlation of gun ownership and inner city crime somehow is connected. If you say that, then you say that if you own guns, then you run drugs. And hear what I'm saying. In the inner city, drugs are imported. They're not made there. They're imported. Where are they imported from? So if they're not imported, if they're not made there, they're imported. In order to import drugs, you need what? Weapons. If you're importing drugs, what else are you importing? Weapons. So the weapons ain't coming from the black gun owners. The weapons are being imported just like the drugs are being imported. But they don't want to take a look at that correlation because they don't want to be responsible for the narrative. That's why you go to any inner city in America, you'll find the same type of staples and you'll be able to get there in 2 seconds. You'll find the same type of situation. So where I came from in Wisconsin, the inner city has been the inner city since I was a kid. The only thing the inner city did was grow with more poverty. I'm 55 years old. How can that be? I'll show you how that can be. Mass shootings. If you are a white gun owner, you are responsible for every mass shooting that went around. That's what the narrative that they'll try to hold you to, because you're a white gun owner. And just because you're a responsible gun owner doesn't mean that you're responsible for any mass shooting. The manufacturer, which they're trying to sue, is not responsible for any mass shooting. Now, I'm not trying to take away the tragedy of it. It is definitely a tragedy. But there's an individual person that makes that individual decision, and they should be held accountable on all fronts for their decision to do that. Other than that, blaming other people that are responsible gun owners is a bunch of bullshit. I just can't buy it. So the whole thing comes down to is accountability. As a responsible gun owner, what do you have? Accountability for yourself. You make sure you do the right thing. You make sure you fill out the right paperwork. You make sure you lock up your gun. You make sure you're not out here drinking and driving and shooting and this, that, and other. You make sure that you're doing the right thing. So you're accountable. But guess who's not accountable? The people you put in office. They're not accountable to you. Why? Because you don't make them accountable to you. This is why we have this great divide of what's going on, because they know they can split you as a gun owner. Think of yourself as an ethnic group on your own. And what do you want? You want your rights to be able to own your guns and do your thing and go about your business, not bothering nobody. As an ethnic group, this should be your only mission. You shouldn't be worried about all the other politics, because that's the trick bag that gets you messed up in the first place. The whole thing about towing the line when you join these parties, or when you join any organization, no, you shouldn't be an organizational terrorist, just causing questions to cause questions. But with something not sitting with you, you should be able to get that question answered and be satisfactory with it. Otherwise, there's an issue. But just to cause a problem, that's just like debating. You're not going to get anything done with that. And just towing the line, just going with it because that's the way the majority goes, again, that's what got us in this problem in the first place. You have to have accountability for the people that you put in office. And you can't tell me that you can't look at these folks on an individual level and make sure that they're doing what's right for your gun owners' rights. You can't tell me you don't have time. You have time for fantasy football. You can keep up with who won the Super Bowl. You can keep up what stats and had an NBA championship. Why can't you keep up with this? If you are living in an automatic district on a local level, and your neighborhood is still the crappy neighborhood after 4 years, and you don't call this person on the carpet, that's your fault. Your neighborhood is still looking crappy after 4 years of promises from this person, and the only thing they can tell you is what they did downtown to bring economics that didn't come to your neighborhood. That's your fault. So at the end of the day, we have accountability as gun owners to make sure our agenda is heard in a unified front. We have accountability to make sure that we take care of our families in any way possible that we have to in any situation, and we'll let the police clean that up later. We have the responsibility of holding those people that we are part of these rights organizations, that they're doing the right thing and not just riding around in Maseratis. We have the responsibility to hold those people that we voted for and put in office to make sure our agenda is on their table and that they're doing the right thing. Otherwise, they have to go. And I'm going to leave you with this one statement. Regardless of how this thing shakes out, whether these folks buy into the message that I'm saying or not, the one thing that I'm not going to do is that I'm never, ever giving up mine. So with that, we'll catch you in the next video. Peace.